we're here today to talk about Amazon data insights from Seller Central and beyond. And we have Claudiu here with us from Milan today. He's going to introduce himself a little bit later on. And I'll just say really quickly that I'm Becky Trowbridge. I'm the digital marketing manager here at e-Comainde. I've been here, I think like 6 years now and love it. Really interested to hear what Claudiu has to say about Seller Central data. I know data and profitability and all of the analysis around how are your ads working and, you know, are you making enough money? Those are questions that are top of mind for sellers all the time. So I think this is a really great topic. And then I did just want to mention, if you are a Feedback 5 customer, you might have seen our new number of offers change alert. So we're really excited about that. And we've also added some listing status change alerts to help you find suppressed listings. So not quite data related, but also if you don't have those listings up and selling, you know, you've got some issues. So wanted to make sure just to highlight that you do have those new features. And if you have questions about them, we're happy to answer them at any time. And then our tools do provide some data beyond what you can find in Seller Central. So Restock Pro has a lot of profitability information, and Feedback 5 will help you aggregate and analyze your reviews, your feedback. And then just some housekeeping. If you have any questions at any time, please put them in the chat. Colleen is here with me and we're monitoring that. And we'll be happy to pop in and answer those questions. And we're recording this webinar. We'll be sending it out after the conversation today. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Becky. Hello, everyone. I'm Claudiu. I'll have a slide introducing myself. So first of all, let's start off with the agenda for today. So what I'm planning to talk about today is how to make the most out of your Amazon data. Now, of course, Amazon data is quite of a hot topic. Data in general, in fact, is quite of a hot topic today, especially because of these new AI kind of projects and developments that have been happening in the last year or so. So it's quite of a hot topic, but what I'm trying to do today is kind of set up the base for how to properly analyze data, not only on Amazon, that's why the name of the webinar actually says from Seller Central and beyond. So the goal is to have this framework presented to you so that you know and understand how you should be going ahead and doing any kind of data initiative. I'll be starting off the agenda with a bit of an intro about myself so that you understand why I'm talking about this subject and kind of what my expertise is. Then we're starting off with part number 1, which is about this Comainde framework. It's a framework that I'm introducing. It's similar to another framework that has been in the knowledge management domain, which is the DIKW, which is Data Information, Knowledge, and Wisdom. So I kind of introduced something new, which is this Comainde framework. It has 4 different buckets, let's say, or steps: collection, management, insights, and decision. And again, this should be helpful for you to set up any data initiative. And today we will focus on to how to use that for your Amazon data. On the second part, we will be looking over some use cases on how you can apply actually this Comainde framework. So how can you take advantage of it? I was chatting with Becky, and ideally, I think what we can do here is if you have access to your Seller Central accounts, I think we can do this lively. So while I'm presenting kind of the steps that I'm following to arrive to some kind of a KPI or information, maybe you can do it in the same time so that at the end of today's webinar, you're actually left out with some tangible findings on your own Seller Central account, right? I think we will be sharing the presentation itself too. The webinar, of course, the recording will be sharing, but if you can do it in the same time, maybe if you have questions or something, you know, you're stuck at one step, then I can answer, I can help you directly with these questions that you might have. So we will be doing this for about 20 minutes, and then at the end of today's webinar, we'll take Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Again, if there's something that's during the presentation that you want to ask, go ahead and ask. There's absolutely no issue with this. So this is today's agenda. What I'm going to be doing forward is introduce myself. So I'm Claudiu Clement, as Becky mentioned. I'm a senior e-commerce consultant and the analytics manager for e-Comas. e-Comas is an e-commerce agency based out of Luxembourg. We're about 50 plus people, and we're helping brands expand globally. So either from US to Europe or from Europe to US, or even from, for example, from Germany to other marketplaces in Europe. And we do so by having quite of a, let's say, diverse approach. We have either an account management service. We also offer consulting services. Of course, part of the account management, we offer advertising services. So we have quite a broad portfolio of services. But as I said, our goal is to help brands grow and expand across all the marketplaces of Amazon. I'm located in Milan, as Becky said. I'm going to be here until the end of the year. I was born in Romania, so I'm Romanian. I'm traveling back and forth from Milan to Luxembourg, as you can imagine, to kind of visit my colleagues in Luxembourg and make sure we're really communicating well and we're helping our brands grow. In terms of experience, I have about 8 years of experience in e-commerce and consulting. I started my career as an e-commerce entrepreneur. I had a bicycle business back in Romania, started in 2015. And then I joined the e-commerce, not an e-commerce, I joined the management consulting boutique. I've been working there for about 3 years. I also started my PhD during the same time, which helped me have this position of teaching assistant at the university. So I was also teaching statistics. I finished the PhD at the end of last year. So I kind of have a mix of data with strategic expertise, and then with this e-commerce and Amazon expertise. So these three things are kind of the ingredients of my expertise and the reason for why I'm speaking today about this topic. So I'll jump off and start the presentation with the first part. As I said, what I'm going to be starting to talk about is this Comainde framework. Now, what is this Comainde framework? Why am I talking about this? And why do I think that brands in general, or even individuals, need to have a structure for the way they analyze their data? I think some of you already do it intuitively. So some of the data analysis can be done. And even if you don't follow these steps, you can still arrive to success in your business, or you can still have success out of your data initiative. However, I think we should put a base in place. We should put some kind of structure so that everyone follows this. And then in case there's something that's not working, at least you know in which step in this approach something is not working, right? Now, if we look for this, for the schema that I have here on my slides, every data initiative typically starts with a business question. So we should have a question that we then want to address through these 4 steps from the Comainde framework. And in the end, we should have some kind of success out of it. It can be growth. It can be anything that you'd call success in your business, right? So starting off with this idea that we should have a business question, then we're properly moving into this Comainde framework. So we're starting off with collection. Of course, you cannot analyze data if you don't have it, right? So we have to collect it. We have to see where our data sits, what kind of format it has. Is it ready to be downloaded? Do we have to use an API? So what kind of approach we need to have to make use of this data, right? So this is the first step. The second step is the management of the data. Now we have to make sure in this step that the data is clean and it's located in a database or even stored on our computer, but we have to make sure the data is ready for analysis, which is the third step, insights. So we've found the data, we've cleaned it and kind of managed it. We stored it somewhere, and then we have to extract insights out of it. So we have to get some kind of knowledge out of our data, right? Now, in this step, there's different ways we can do this, and I'll be covering it in a few coming slides. But as I said, the goal is to also make decisions, because there's no point in actually working with data, investing all times in this, storing the data, paying for a database, having someone maybe develop some kind of a business intelligence dashboard for us. If we don't make any decisions, then there's no point in us having any kind of data initiative, right? We want to make decisions, and a decision can be to not do anything, right? It's still a decision. Not doing anything is still a decision, but it means at some point in the future, we will maybe readdress this KPI or metric, and then we'll make decisions on it, right? So this is kind of the Comainde framework. That's why I'm proposing this. We will be going a bit in detail over all these 4 steps of this framework. And then in the second part, as I said, we'll have a hands-on approach into how you can use some of the reports from Amazon to make use of this framework, okay? So I'll be moving ahead with the collection step, of course. So we're moving from the business question to the collection step. So as I said, we have to find out where our data sits, and we have to see or analyze how this data can be exported. Now, there's at least two approaches here. We either download the data manually, basically a CSV or an Excel file or a TXT file, and we store that somewhere on our computer, or we use what's called an API call. So an API is basically, let's say, a connector to which we can actually plug in and then try to call it so that we can extract data. Now, Amazon has quite a new API. It's called the SP API, which I'll be covering a bit later. So we either download the reports manually, if it's some analysis that we have to do, which is quite simple, or we call the API. Now, if you're a smaller seller, we don't expect you to have a connection to the API because that's quite of an intense, resource-intense kind of approach. But if you download the reports yourself, second part, I'll be showing you a bit of how you can actually get use of some of the reports from Amazon. So this is the first step. This is the collection step. But before we move ahead and actually talk about, what kind of data to collect, where does that sit, and so on, we have to be aware of at least some of the most important reports from Amazon. Now, I've split these in three. You have, let me see if this works. Red. Well, I guess it doesn't work because it's a pen. I thought I have a laser here, but anyway, you're starting off with this here, which is your own data. So this is typically what most of the Amazon sellers use, and it's most probably helping you to make most of the decisions. But what we're trying to show you here is that there's two different types of data that you can use to kind of have a holistic approach of how you use your Amazon data. Now, let's cover this your own data topic on Amazon. There's three different types of data that you have for your own brand on Amazon. You have your sales data, for sure. You have your advertising data, and you have your inventory data. Now, you would be thinking, hey, hold on, but we're missing payments here. We're basically missing the financial information data. What I'm trying to show here is that these are the most important ones for some of the most common business questions and kind of decisions that we've experienced from our expertise with clients. We're not saying that you should avoid the other reports. We think that these ones that we're presenting here are some of the most important ones and should help you to answer most of your business questions. Now, to come back with the sales, your own data, the sales information here, there's two types of reports. We have the all orders report and we have the business reports. Now, if some of you actually dived a bit deeper into these reports and kind of tried to see what the difference is between the two, it's not new that there's difference in terms of sales numbers that you'd be seeing there. And the reason is because business reports simply has a different approach into the data that it's showing there. For example, one of the things is that in business reports, you will also be seeing canceled orders. Okay, so if you think the canceled orders are not visible there, they're still going to be visible there. While on the all orders report, you can basically filter this one out, and of course, you'll be left out with what's your real turnover. So this is the sales kind of bucket. Now we move into the advertising bucket, and this is probably some of the most advanced area of Amazon at this point, not only because the ad console is quite complex, but because Amazon is really investing into these new platforms, which is AMC and AMS. AMC stands for Amazon Marketing Cloud. AMS stands for Amazon Marketing Stream. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of this because that's not the goal of today's presentation, but if you're interested in really getting the most out of your advertising spend, you have to, in a sense, use the Amazon Marketing Cloud and or Amazon Marketing Stream. Amazon Marketing Cloud gives you information about what we call multi-touch advertising. So basically, if you do different kinds of advertising, you'd be able to find things such as path to purchase, for example. If I'm advertising on, let's say, outside Amazon, what's the impact of that at the end of my kind of my funnel or my conversion rate? There's a bunch of use cases you can do with AMC. It's quite of an advanced platform too. You have to know SQL code, so it's a very, very broad term. Amazon Marketing Stream, on the other hand, is also focused on advertising, but it gives you more granular data, meaning it gives you hourly data into your spend, into kind of how you can optimize advertising. So I've covered sales and advertising. The last one is inventory, and we have two reports that we consider here important: inventory ledger and the active listings report. The inventory ledger shows you how many units basically you have for all your SKUs, while the active listings report shows you, no, sorry, the other way around. The inventory ledger shows you actually where your inventory sits, so basically in which FC centers, and the active listings report shows you kind of how many SKUs you have for, how many units you have for all your SKUs. Now, something that's very, very interesting lately is this market part here. And Amazon is becoming quite good at this lately. And they're offering us information about something that has never been available on Amazon. By market, I mean the Amazon market. Of course, we don't have any information about outside Amazon. So we have information about what's going on, for example, in our category. This is super powerful. And I think most brands should get or take advantage of this, because this shows you where you are actually positioned against your competitors within your niche, right? So we have this report, the Product Opportunity Explorer. This sits within the growth module on Amazon. I have a bit of a kind of use case on this one, so we'll be covering this later on. And then there's this hybrid section too, or let's say hybrid type of data, in which there's at least two reports here. Is the product recommendation report, which shows you how well or not so well your conversion rate is compared to your niche. Okay, so you can see this in the product recommendation report. And then in the search query performance, also super powerful report that Amazon has been releasing, I think last year about this time. And we'll be covering this too. So we'll have a use case into how this can be used. I think we have a question, Becky.
Yeah, we had someone ask who has access to the Amazon Marketing Cloud.
Yeah, great question. So I think at this point it's only invite only, or you have to do DSP ads to get into this platform. I think the threshold in UK is quite low. I think you have to spend at least 10K in advertising. Not sure if that's only DSP, but I know for sure there's most agencies that have access to it, and some of the brands with some kind of a threshold, which is different by marketplace. So you might want to check on the Amazon website exactly what the threshold is for this specific instance. But I think the best way to kind of get access to this is if you can reach out to your account manager, if you have one. So if you have an advertising account manager, if you reach out to them, they'll be able to tell you kind of what the threshold is. If you're already meeting that, then they should be able to give you access, and from there you can actually play with it. It's quite of an advanced platform, and if your ad practice is not super sophisticated, you most probably won't get much out of it. But the more money you have on it, the more optimization you can actually do on top of it. So that's kind of the approach here. That's why, in a sense, agencies had kind of a first glance at this, because obviously the budgets for that the agencies are managing are quite large, and then there's optimization that can be done on that side. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Perfect, cool. Now let me see how I get rid of this pen, but probably, okay, cool. So let me just move things around a bit here. Okay, so what I'm also trying to mention today is that not only that you have to use your own data on Amazon, but it's super important that you use these new reports, and especially the market and this hybrid kind of type of reports from Amazon, because this is the only way you can actually arrive to what I call data centricity, which is basically decision making based on data. So at the core of your decisions, you use data. I think you have to use these three, because as I'm showing here at the end of at the bottom of this pyramid here, this is okay, maybe not the only way, but this is a good way to actually have a successful business. Now we're gonna be, if my laptop actually wants to do it, okay, we're gonna be moving into the management step. So what is this? We're moving from collection to management. In this step, a quite common terminology here is ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load. So we have to extract the data. We have to transform it in one way or another, either using SQL or either using Excel. We have to transform it and make sure it's clean and make sure it's actually formatted in the right way so that we can then take actions on it. And we have to load this data. Now, I do understand these terms are quite, let's say, big terms. Okay, loading the data, what exactly that means. So it can be as simple as just saving the file on your computer, right? If you're using a database, the loading process is a bit more, let's say, advanced. If you're not using a database, it's just simply storing that specific report that you've been downloading from Amazon on your computer, okay, or maybe on Google Drive or OneDrive and all kinds of cloud environments. So this is kind of the management step. Now we have also two approaches here. You can either do it for the manual data, so you go on the what's called GUI or graphical user interface. You use Google Sheets or Excel to kind of manipulate the data. It's relatively easy, so you don't really have to do much on it. If you're familiar with, let's say, basic Excel or Google Sheets functions, you should be able to kind of play around with your reports and mix and match them and clean them and have them into the right format. Amazon is not super good with the formatting of their reports. Some of them have quite of a weird format, so you have to kind of manage it a bit. If you have different currencies, you also have to adjust this and kind of convert it into the right currency. So this is also something that can be done relatively easy. For this type of data, the effort and the expertise required is quite low. So you don't really have to, again, have a lot of expertise here. In terms of advantages, it helps you have quick insights. So you can quickly pivot table, have some number there, and then you can take actions on it. And then in terms of limitations, most of the insights will probably be something that's either not new or it's something that you're not the only one that actually knows this, this kind of information. I think the benefit of really managing your data well is when you're able to put together all the reports and all the Amazon data so that you get a bit of an advanced or compared to the other brands on the market. If you're looking for the same numbers, okay, it's good enough for you to make basic decision making. But if you really want to be one step forward, you have to kind of mix and match data in your own way so that this will get you an advantage. So I'm moving now into the second bucket, which is this automatic way of actually approaching data. Amazon has this SP API. For this, there's no threshold in terms of ad spend or anything. Any seller can connect to it. You need a developer account. Of course, you need to know what you're doing, and then you can connect to it and you can extract your Amazon data out of it. As I said, AMC and AMS, there's two other kind of platforms that you can connect to. The storage medium for these has to be databases. You can't really have data that gets to some kind of a Excel or CSV file. Manipulation is done typically to ETL tools. For example, within e-Comas, we're using a tool called DBT. It's quite of an advanced tool. We actually have software engineers that are helping us with this. In terms of effort and expertise, it's high. You have, as I said, software developers, data engineers, data scientists that should help you with this. But the advantage of this is that most probably you'll be finding insights that typically are not found on the Amazon platform. And if you're really investing much time on it, you're probably having some insights that no one else has in your market, not because they cannot do it, but because if you invest enough time, then you'll be able to actually understand your data well, so that it gets you some insights that not everyone has. And as I said, in terms of a limitation, it requires quite of a significant investment. So I'm moving into the insights.
Can I jump in? Sorry, just another question. Jose is asking us, how do you use the market and hybrid sources, the reports that you included under those two types of data in a scalable way? As far as I know, they are not included in the API. Correct.
That's 100% true. And in fact, we're not using it in a very scalable way, but I think in the same time, market information maybe should not be tracked every day. So in a sense, the stuff that you get from the API has quite a bit of granularity. So you look for hourly or daily data. But market data on a daily basis, maybe it's not what you need. It is a limitation of Amazon that you don't get that through the API yet. And for example, okay, while the product opportunity explorer is one section that's kind of okay with, I think people are really looking into getting this search query performance through the API, which is not available now. So we are aware of this, and long story short is you cannot get that through the API. But I think from a, let's say, strategic perspective, even if you do it once a month, you should still be able to get insights out of it. So maybe at this point, for most brands, it's not necessarily needed that you get that through the API. So you get, all kinds of granularity, and hopefully Amazon will actually get us access to this at one point. But No, you cannot get that through the API. So no scalable way. At this point, you still have to download it and kind of pivot table and kind of play around with it. So that's one of the minuses for sure. Cool. Moving ahead. Great. So we're moving now into the insights step here. So we have to kind of extract the insights out of the data that has been collected and cleaned, and we have it into some kind of a medium. So of course, endless ways you can actually extract insights. Two of them I'm going to be focusing on today is exploring the data visually and quantitatively. I'm actually going to be showing you something that's quite interesting in terms of a bias, let's say, that some data users have when they're analyzing their data. But in this step, for sure, you have to do your best, let's say, to extract the insights from your data with the capability that you have at that moment. You want to go super advanced on it. There's BI tools. There's a bunch of activities that you can do. But to keep it simple, I'm only going to be focusing on kind of simple things for us today. Now, there's at least two types of data analysis here. There's raw data analysis, meaning you kind of just check a KPI on the Amazon platform. You already have it. You don't have to collect. You don't have to download. You don't have to manage anything. It's just a KPI there. So if, for example, on a daily basis management, you want to use the sales from the business reports, I'm not saying that's wrong. It's totally fine. I think it will give you the big picture of what's going on with your account. And yes, it might not be accurate to the penny, but still it will tell you that, hey, yesterday you had more or less sales than the day before. So at least you kind of get to understand where your position. So this is the raw data analysis. Everything that you can find on Amazon and you don't have to do any analysis on. This is just raw data, right? You have it there. You don't have to do anything. Now, if you have the data, there's exploratory analysis that you can do, including visualization. So for this, you can get a bit more advanced. One way to look at it is to do summary statistics, for example, which is as simple as just median or average. If you're familiar with these central tendency statistics terms, so you can use this and you should be quite good. And then very importantly, and this is something that I really want to push for most of the brands that we work with and also internally for us, is data has to be visualized most of the times. If you're not sure about your data, I suggest you visualize it, because you'll then see that you can get quite some insights out of it. Now, you can use Google Data Studio, you can use Tableau, you can use Power BI. So again, it depends on where you are in your data journey and how advanced you go with these. But there's both free and paid tools that you can use, each one with kind of its advantages and disadvantages. These two approaches would be helping you to understand your data. Now, let's move into something that I really love, and this is something that I was also showing my students a few years back. What do we have here? We have a table with 4 different data sets, right? We have data set 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, typically, what most people that use data do is they use summary statistics. By summary statistics, I mean this section here, right? This is called summary statistics. So you sum up the numbers. Okay, what do we see here? 99, 99, 99, 99. Okay, cool. And then we look for averages. It's 9, is 7.59. So what do we see? We see that these 4 data sets are exactly the same. So if we would only do statistical, let's say, most common statistical approaches here, which is sum, average, standard deviation, we would think that these 4 data sets are exactly the same. Why I'm saying it's super important to actually visualize the data, because if you visualize it, you'll actually see that they're not exactly the same. Okay, this is called the unscoped SCAR-T. It's quite, let's say, popular on data visualization conferences, meetings, kind of webinars, and so on. And I'm showing this to kind of highlight to you that, okay, maybe the first 3 data sets are in a sense quite similar. They even have the same regression line for whoever is familiar with this statistical concepts. But what we can see is that in this last one here, data is for sure not the same or not even similar with that one. And that's because we have this outlier here. Outliers in itself, it's another topic that maybe we don't have time to cover today. But the highlight that I want to have here is super important to visualize your data. If you are not sure about how your data looks, or maybe you're trying to compare two, three, four different data sets, very important to visualize it to be able to actually draw conclusions on. Now, in terms of decisions, last step, we're moving from insights to decisions. So we want to use these insights to make decisions, so that in the end we get some value out of all this data initiative that we've been discussing about. As I said, some insights should be supervised across time. So even if you're not doing any action now, you can still supervise it and do some kind of action in the future. On some insights, you can actually directly act upon, so you can actually do some kind of or have some kind of a decision right after you've analyzed the data. So these were the 4 steps of the Comainde framework. I'm going to be moving now ahead onto the part 2. Now, I see we have about 80 people now. Hopefully, most of you actually have access to your seller central account, sorry. I think what we can do is, if you have access to your accounts now, I'll take it a bit slower because it looks like we're quite good with time too. So we can then do this in the same time. So you do the same use cases that I'm showing you here, and then you're ending up with some kind of an insights that maybe you did in the past, maybe you didn't. So, this is the win after this webinar for you. So use case number 1. Use case number 1 is something that's very common for our clients, and it's something that can be calculated in multiple ways. One way that I'm showing you it can be done today, not perfect for sure, maybe not 100% accurate, but still it's something that you can take quite good decisions on, because this is a quite new report that Amazon shares with us, and it's something that can be beneficial for your brand. So the most common question is, what is my market share? Right? Brands come to us, they say, oh, hey, this is all great. We've been working on this and that, but what is my market share? Where am I positioned against my competitors? One way that I'm trying to show you here that you can quickly, or relatively quickly, let's say, you can calculate this. Let's see in this collection step. So for this, we have to use the search query performance report. This can be accessed by going into brand analytics. To go in brand analytics, you either use the main menu, the hamburger menu that you have on the left, or if you're on the first page of Seller Central, and if you scroll down, there's a bunch of sections there. One of them is brands, and the first one should be brand analytics. So if you click on that one, then you should go into this search query performance report. Now, one thing to mention here, you have to be brand registered. So indeed, if you're not brand registered, you're not going to be able to see brand analytics. But assuming everyone is brand registered, and from our experience, 90% of the brands are brand registered, because it's kind of best practice on really leveraging A+ and all the benefits of being brand registered. So knowing this, if you go and click on search query performance, you'll be seeing this this report that I'm kind of circling here, right? So you should be on this page. Now, you select one of the brands that you want to look at. If you have multiple, just pick one, and then you'll be able to redo it for all the other brands. Reporting range, I picked quarterly. It can be anything. It can also be monthly or weekly. I'd say quarterly is probably a good time frame here. You select the year and then select the quarter. You click apply, and then you'll be able to see quite some good information here. Maybe some of you are familiar with this search query performance report. If you're not, I'd suggest you. Okay, I'll sound probably strange, but I'll suggest you dig a bit into either some YouTube videos or kind of try to see what the information is on Amazon. But what this gives you is information about how well either your brand or your ASINs are actually performing on 4 different steps. You have impressions, you have clicks, you have add to carts, and you have purchases, right? So on all these 4 levels, you can then see kind of what your brand share is and how well you're performing. So with this in mind, if you click then generate download, you'll be ending up with an Excel file. We're into this management phase. Okay, so we have this data, it's an Excel file. What do we do with it? Now, to be able to calculate market share, we need 2 variables. We need units sold, and then we need, units sold in our niche for sure. So kind of see what the total market generated within that time frame, units sold in our niche. And we need an average product value. You might have an idea what the average product value is. If you don't, at the bottom of this page, I'm also showing you how you can find what the average product value is in your niche. Let's open the downloaded file with Excel, for example. You have to remove the first row because, as I said, Amazon is not super good in terms of the formatting of their files. Let's remove the first row, and then you should be left out with all the data that we need. If you select all that data, then we can pivot table. And I hope, I mean, okay, it requires some basic Excel skills, but I hope this is, it's not super advanced. So if we're selecting the full data out of this file and then we pivot table it, we should only then total the sum of purchases, right? Exactly, that's how it should be called. Sum of purchases, total count, right? That will give us how many units have been sold during the time frame that you've picked in our niche. Okay, so this is what this file should give us. 1,000, 10,000, whatever the number is the number of total units sold in our niche. Now we have already half of our equation, right? We have the units sold in our niche. Now we have to find this average product value now, and for this, there's also this quite nice relatively new report of Amazon, which is Product Opportunity Explorer. For this, you also have to go on the main menu, you click on growth, and then you should have Product Opportunity Explorer. If you click on it, you'll be on a page similar to the one that I'm highlighting here in this first print screen. You search for your niche. Unfortunately, some niches, if they're very small, are not going to be available here. From our experience, most of the niches are currently available there for both US and EU5. So you have UK, France, Italy, Spain, and Germany. So for these ones, you should be able to kind of get your niche data. And then lastly, you have your average price here. Okay, that's one that I'm kind of circling with red now. So we have this, and then we have both part of the equation. Now, the only thing left for us is to calculate what the total niche size is. So we have the units sold and we have the average unit price. If we multiply this two, we should be left out with total niche size. Let's say it's 1 million, 2 million, whatever it is in your niche. This is your niche size for that specific time frame. If you do it for a quarter and you know there's not much seasonality within your niche, you multiply that by 4, and then you're kind of ended up with total niche value for a year. Okay, again, considering that it's not a niche that has seasonality. Not many niches don't have seasonality, but a good rule of thumb should be that, okay, if you multiply that by 4, that's kind of the total niche size. Now, last thing left here for us to calculate the market share is to preferably know what our sales are. If we don't, we have to go to business reports, kind of select the first quarter, see what the number is there, and use that, and then we just multiply by the total niche size. Okay, let's say we have 100K divided by 1 million. It means at this point, our market share for quarter 1, 2023 was 10%. Okay, how much we've sold divided by how much actually the niche or the little market generated, this is our market share. I think this is super important because typically this kind of data is super expensive to get. You either use Nielsen or use any kind of data provider, but this is not something that brands typically have access, or especially, let's say, relatively smaller brands. To pay for this is quite expensive. And the fact that Amazon actually gives us these tools now to be able to calculate this is quite helpful. I think we have a question.
Yeah, we had one just come in from Mike. He said, if you have multiple product types, how best should we segment this data per niche?
Well, if you have multiple product types, well, yeah, it's tricky, but I assume in a sense there's different niches, right? So let's say you have notebooks, you have pencils, and you have something else. You can do this analysis for all your niches, because in the end that's your niche, right? It's a product category. You can't really drill super low on these, but I think that the last level that you can actually get access to the data onto this niche that you can search for there, it should be good enough. And ideally, of course, you don't look for super broad terms such as, I don't know, office supplies, for example, because that's a bit broad. So if you're able to go as granular as possible, then that's what I suggest it should be done there. But again, this is super helpful, and I hope now that I've showed you how this can be done, ideally you track this monthly, maybe weekly is probably not giving you too much, but if you do it monthly or maybe quarterly on your quarterly business review, if you track this, at least you know, okay, hold on. So on quarter 1, our market share was 10%, quarter 2 was 12, Q3 was 8, Q4 was 10, let's say, right? So we see some changes here. And then with this in mind, you're able to say, okay, but what triggered us to grow on Q2 and actually decline on Q3, right? Was it maybe that Prime Day had an impact? Maybe we didn't invest enough in advertising. Maybe our competitor actually decreased their prices. So there's a bunch of ramifications that you can do on it to actually, come down to the decision that you should make. But I think you have a good starting point on a specific metric that's typically not available, especially for smaller sellers, right? So now you have the market share, you can use it. How you can use it, we probably need another webinar only on this. But we have a good starting number on, what your market share is. And I think also interesting, if you're maybe considering to sell your brand, for example, you have an idea of where you're positioned. Are you really a small fish in this kind of niche, or maybe you're a big fish and you didn't know, right? So you can now kind of put your finger into this number. Now, I'm going to be moving into use case number 2. And use case number 2 is also a question that we also typically receive. And this is it a me problem or all of us problem in terms of what's going on in the market, right? Let's say there's a brand that actually has sales that are going down, for example. And typically the brand responsible person comes to us and they say, is it that most of our players are going down? Is it a decrease in demand, or what's going on with the market? Is it I have a problem, or maybe everyone has a problem? And in a sense, not that it's good, but at least you know that you're not the only one that actually loses sales, right? So to solve this is quite easy to address. What you have to do is this time use the Product Opportunity Explorer only. So you go into this report. So you go into Growth, Product Opportunity Explorer. You search for your niche again. You click on your niche, and then you'll end up into this page. And this is a very, very good metric here. It shows you search volume growth, right? This is year on year. So it's actually, this is actually changed. We used to be year on year, but it's now on the 180 days. But it gives you kind of an idea of what the momentum is in the market in terms of demand, right? So if your business is going down, for example, 20%, but the volume growth in terms of demand is going up 25% almost, it means in a sense it is a you problem, right? So you have a problem. If the market is requesting more, or the demand is higher, but your brand is going down, it means something is not properly right? So you have to address this. You have to see what's to be done there. Now, in terms of collection numbers, they don't have to do anything. In terms of management, you don't have to edit. It's just a KPI. You can look at it and you can already address it as kind of an insight. So in this case, if niche is up 24%, that's a typo. It should not be year on year. It's actually kind of like half year. So 180 days versus 180 days in terms of search demand. Now you compare that with how well your business is growing. If your business is outperforming the market, meaning on those 180 days, your business is up maybe 35%, it means you've been outperforming the market, so you don't have to do anything. If you're declining more than the market, meaning if the market is up 25%, but your business is actually if you're going down, let's say 25%, but the market is going up 25%, it means you have an issue. You have to find out what the root cause of this is. And of course, there's so many ways you can address this, but at least you get to understand if it is a you problem or if it's a kind of all of us problem. Now, in terms of the use case number 3, this is also quite simple to address. And the business question here is, do I have a visibility or a conversion problem? There's two types of, there's multiple problems, of course, that can happen onto all seller central accounts, but some of the common ones, at least in terms of when it comes to this search performance report, query performance report, is it visibility or conversion? So we go back into the search query performance report, we select the same time frame, and then we just click apply, and we get to see this data here, right? Now, getting to see this data, what we will then be seeing is this. So we have, for example, in terms of the main keyword for us, we have our impressions brand share, and then we have our clicks brand share. Now, typically, when the impressions brand share is larger than the clicks brand share, it means that you are visible, but you're not getting proportionally the same clicks. So in a sense, it means you have a conversion problem, right? When it is the other way around, you don't get to be seen, but you get clicks. It means you have a visibility problem. So it means you have to kind of act on it and be more visible. So a visibility problem, as I said, is when you have higher brand share percentage than in click than in impression. And then a conversion problem is the other way around, when you have a brand share percentage in impressions higher than in clicks. Now, in this case, as we've seen that we had a conversion problem. So if you have a conversion problem, what you have to do most probably is try to play around with the main photo. Now, Amazon has this A/B testing for the main photo. If you have enough traffic on your listing, and I think you have to be up to 700 impressions, I think, for your listing or clicks to be able to actually play around with this A and B. But this is one way you can address this. So if you have a conversion problem, we recommend that you address your main picture and you try to adjust that so that it kind of helps you to see how you can improve your conversion and ultimately get more clicks. If you have a visibility problem, on the other hand, we suggest you invest more in PPC, of course, to rank higher and be more visible. DSP if you have the budget, or just include exact keywords in your title and A+ in the backend for the alt text image. Now, use case number 4. This is something quite interesting too. Out of all the use cases, this is, in a sense, maybe the less insightful, because most of the brands have an idea about how well they're, not how well, but how their reviews are actually performing in terms of what's driving them. But it's interesting that you can see this from a niche perspective. So if you go on the Product Opportunity Explorer and you click on the last section here, which is this Customer Reviews Insights, you're then able to see what drives both positive and negative feedbacks, right? So you don't have to collect anything. For example, in the past, we did sentiment analysis for some brands. So basically, we were downloading thousands of reviews and we were running machine learning algorithms to be able to extract positive and negative reviews. We were able to do this for all the competitors, but that was quite intense, right? We needed quite some resources to be able to do so. But now Amazon is actually giving us this for free. So you have this and you're able to see what's going on in your niche. Now, in terms of management, nothing that you have to do. You just go on the report and see what's going on there. In terms of your insight, in terms of the insights, you have to check if any of the negative comments or any of the negative topics, let's say, are also applying for you or not. If they're not applying for you, then one of the decisions here is that you leverage this in your content. So basically, if the niche says Bluetooth connection breaks a lot, for example, this is what drives most of the negative feedback. If you know your product doesn't do that, you can leverage that in a sense of saying very stable Bluetooth connection, for example, right? Because you know that customers will be very disappointed if that's happening, and they'll get you negative reviews. But if you know that's not your case, then you can leverage this. I think we have 1 or 2 questions, Becky.
Yeah, we had a question asking, how do I see that? The person's not seeing it. I believe that Customer Reviews Insight is still in beta for some accounts. It may not be available to everyone.
It's only available in US, but I think it's rolled out for all. I think I've never seen one of our accounts that doesn't have it. It might be that some of them still have to get it, but it's only available for US. English language, of course, but only for US.
Okay, and then the other one, I think, is going back to the last use case. What if clicks and impressions are about the same? And then they said you run PPC aggressively. Well, if clicks and impressions are about the same, that's a good thing. Now, if it's a very low number, that might not be a good thing, but you have to compare it. Well, you have to, in a sense, benchmark it against yourself. But if it's about the same, it's typically a good thing. Again, if it's very low, something such as 0.5%, 0.3%, 0.2%, and if it's a keyword that you've been actually including in your title, in your bullet points, in the backend, search terms, and so on, and you're still not showing up, that's not good news. What was the question? If you still invest heavily in PPC? Yes. Yeah. They said you run PPC aggressively. Sorry.
So you run PPC aggressively, basically to increase it's probably worth addressing for which keywords you're actually running the advertising campaign, sponsor products, I assume. So it's interesting to see for which keywords, and the search query report actually gives you insights into some of the keywords that maybe you're actually not using. And the interface that I showed you, I was only focusing here, for example, onto the sublimation paper keyword. But the best way to actually be able to tell what your brand share is, you can pivot table this. So you download everything, you pivot table this, and you kind of calculate the percentages yourself based on the basically the split of brand count by total count, but the total of it for all the keywords, right? So once you do this, if you still find that they're all, let's say they're both equal, both impressions and clicks, in a sense, it's probably not that much that you can do there. But if you then take it keyword by keyword and you address this, for sure, I'm pretty sure you'll find some keywords in which you can have some, let's say, some opportunity, because there's some keywords that probably you're not using in your advertising campaigns, maybe some of them with quite good traffic. So you can then target directly these and see kind of how that's impacting your visibility. Do we have one more question, or was it still that one? Because I'm not able to see.
No, they said that was helpful. Thank you.
Perfect. Moving ahead. All right. Okay, so we were at this use case number 4. As I said, only available in the US, and as far as my knowledge, it should be available for most of the seller accounts. If some of them don't have it, yeah, I'm not sure. It might be tied to brand analytics, although I don't think so. I think it's worth investigating. It might be that some niches don't have it, maybe because they're quite small, but I don't expect this to be really tied to some seller accounts. So we'll have to check this. As I said, I've already covered this. So if there's any opportunity that you can see in terms of the negative drivers, which you know your products don't have, you can leverage this and use it in your advantage in your PDPs, product display pages. Now, use case number 5 here, is my conversion rate too low, right? So many brands ask this, how am I comparing, or where am I compared to the niche? What's kind of the benchmark for conversion rate here? It's super interesting that Amazon actually gives us this. This is into this product recommendation section, which is also in the growth section. So you go on the main menu, growth opportunities, product recommendations. And then you have 2 kind of columns here. You have your ASIN conversion rate, and then you have a category conversion rate. So there you're able to actually benchmark against the niche, and you're able to tell if your conversion rate is too low or not, right? In this case, conversion rate is better than the category. So you already know the answer for this. No analysis that you have to be doing here. I was really trying to focus onto something that's like super insightful but easy to get. Of course, 2 options. You either have a higher conversion rate or a lower conversion rate than the niche. If you have a higher conversion rate, most probably you don't have to do anything. If you have a lower conversion rate, you'll have to check what's actually driving your competitive conversion rate to see if there's any learning out of it. Of course, after you make sure that you're following all the best practice and kind of recommendations to drive conversion rate, which is what we call retail readiness. So optimized title, optimized imagery, lifestyle picture, video, optimized bullet points, A+, and yeah, that's kind of the retail readiness. Use case number 6. This use case is actually the last one, and then we'll have a bit of time for questions. Most brands are using ROAS, right? Return on advertising spend, and this is as simple as just ad sales divided by ad spend. But there's also TROAS, right? TROAS or TACOS. Some companies are using, but let's focus now on this TROAS. Now, what this TROAS is, it kind of shows you overall return on investment on all your advertising spend. You have advertising generated sales, and you also have organic sales, right? And organic plus ads is basically your total sales. Now, this total sales. If you divide that by the advertising spend, it should give you a number that's called TROAS, right? But to be able to get this, you should pull together all the reports from all the marketplaces. You have to convert, you have to kind of put together all the advertising spend. If you do DSP, if you do PPC, you have to put everything together to kind of come down to two numbers, right? As I said, total sales from all the marketplaces and total advertising spend. Now, what I'm trying to showcase with this slide here is the fact that we suggest, and that's how we do it internally, to be able to calculate this even on a daily basis, you have to use the Amazon's API. Okay, so if you want to track this, what's your return on investment for your advertising spend, you want to do this daily, you have to use the Amazon API. The workload involved to actually go and download all the reports, add all the conversion rates, aggregate all the ad sales, put everything together and kind of come down to what my TROAS was yesterday. That's a bit of work. It's not impossible, and you can have some kind of macros or Google Sheets kind of automations that you can do. But the best way to do this is through the Amazon's API. So what we're showcasing here is that this is the option if you want to go a bit more in depth with the way you analyze your data. And this is how we do it for us. We actually have a new product now. It's called Compass. So with this dashboard, we're aggregating all the both sales and advertising information for our clients, and then they're able to check, okay, what was my return on investment on advertising yesterday, the day before, last week, this time, and so on, because we don't do this manually, right? It's stored in a report and people are able to access it and they can see these numbers in the same place. There's some other tools that they're doing, but we also do this, and our clients are quite happy with it. In terms of management, as I was explaining, it's quite a bit of work to actually manage this data. Insights, you can, for example, find out that your best return on investment is for a specific category. The category topic is also something interesting because you have to label your ASINs most probably manually, which we do too, but we only do it once. So we have all our clients' ASINs. Let's say one of them is baby bottles, the other one is breastfeeding machines and so on. So we label all these and then we're able to come with insights by category, and a category that we create, not a category that Amazon tells us, because we all know how categories are on Amazon. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. So this is use case number 6, in which I was trying to highlight that the more you want to go in depth with your data analysis initiatives, the more you have to invest on it, and the most probably you'll be arriving to using the API and a bit more advanced kind of data tools, let's say. And with this, coming down to the questions, we still have 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, we did have a question asking if what you were just talking about is the same as tacos.
Yes, well, it's the other way around. So there's 2 big metrics in ads. One is ROAS, which is ad sales divided by ad spend. The other one is ACOS, right? Which is ad spend divided by ad sales. TACOS is basically ad spend divided by total sales. So it's just a reversion of the TROAS. Some people use TACOS, some people use TROAS. It's really a bit of a discussion, let's say, in the advertising world here, which one is best. We use TROAS. We think it's a bit more, I don't know, tangible, let's say, in a sense. However, TACOS is also interesting if brands are mostly addressing this from a P&L standpoint, because a TACOS of 10% basically tells you that your cost to generate the sales is 10%, right? You sell 1 million, you invested 100K, right? So that's kind of easy to digest and easy to see. ROAS would be 10. So for some people, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means you invest $1 and in exchange you get 10. So there's different ways you can look at it, and there's no right or wrong way. It's just different metrics.
Great. Well, I think we've answered everything unless there are any last minute questions. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Claudiu, for sharing your insights. This was awesome. I love the hands-on format and the way that you thought about questions that businesses have, because we definitely see that a lot too, the very same things that you brought up. So hope this was helpful to all of you. And like I said, appreciate your time today, and we'll talk soon.
Lovely.
Recording coming later today. All right.
Thank you, Becky. Thanks everyone for joining. I hope you've got some great insights out of it. And yeah, if needed, maybe we'll do some follow-ups. So
sure.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hey.